You're watching The Lookout, a production of the Division of World Languages and Cultural Studies here at Minot State University. I'm your host, Samuel Stinson. This is episode 29. This is our final episode of the year 2022. And it's hard to believe that we've had almost 30 episodes of the Lookout podcast. It's also hard to believe that 2022 is almost over. In this episode, we're going to focus on something a little different. So, most recently, as you know, if you've watched the episode where I was talking with Ethan Valentine from psychology, we have a club here at the university, a gaming club that goes out and plays esports. And at one of the events that the esports club had, they had folks come in over to the campus and share in some gaming, right? To play some video games on some of the televisions. And some of the students brought in their VR headset in their VR gear. And I was very much amused and, I hate to say it, bemused by my lack of proficiency in playing some of the older video games against the students. Well, that's okay. But the VR equipment I thought was very much interesting, and I got to try it on. So one of the students helped me put it on. This is the first time I've ever used VR equipment like this since the Virtual Boy back in the 90s. And the new VR equipment, the Meta Quest 2, I was able to try one of the apps for it, the first of which was Beat Saber. It was a game by which you play somewhat like a Guitar Hero, trying to keep along with music. Instead, you have the two sticks in the game in which you're trying to beat in time to keep up with the game. And another was a game in which you use magic, and the idea was you're looking around the environment and trying certain things using your hands as your guide. So it has hand tracking. So I was very much interested in these titles and the VR headset, so much so that I actually picked up one of these. So I'm going to use this time today to talk about VR and its potential implications for education. So I'm going to open this thing up. This is somewhat of an unboxing. Here is what the VR headset looks like. So this is a Meta Quest 2. So it's not very large. I had to fit it with an extra large strap, though, because number one, I have a big head. And number two, my glasses frames wouldn't fit into the existing shell of the standard Meta Quest 2. I also had to get a larger visor, the little nose shield here. I think there's a more technical name for that. And I also had to get, for the band, I had to make sure that it would stretch. So this type will adjust. And then you put it on your head and then you turn it on. You can close it up. And as you saw, I have the case for it. And then the controllers are these things. So you'll hold these, and there's a wrist strap so you can put it on your wrist while you play. But the interesting thing about these is that whether or not you use a game that uses the controllers, or if you use something that is hand tracking, you're in a 3D simulated environment. So essentially what that means is you've got normal 2D images that have been taken with cameras in some games and then used to scale around you a 3D virtual world in which you look left and you look right, and you'll see things as though you were in 3 dimensions. So you've got like the Star Trek holodeck, the simulation that you are actually seeing a generated world around you. Now, you can tell in some points that the game is pre-engineered and rendered, but at some points when you're playing these, you lose yourself in the environment and you start to actually look around and expect certain things to be there that are simulated. It's really difficult to show this, to talk about it without showing it. So I'm going to show some clips of what some of these titles look like. And again, the purpose is thinking about the way that VR might in the future lend itself toward what we've been doing in our physical face-to-face classrooms, and secondly, in what we've been doing in our Zoom online classrooms as well, and other LMS capable services. So there may be potential for using these in the future, depending on how these might be adapted to our fields in some way that might be pedagogically significant. So this is something I'd like to share here at the end of the year because it's something that I've found to be beneficial. The students have an interest in it, and it seems to be on the way up in terms of the market. So that being said, the first of these I'm going to go over is the Wanderer app. The Wanderer app allows that same scaling of 2D onto 3D environments with Google Images, Google Earth images that are used to take you any place in the world you'd like to go. So any place that Google has gone, any place that they have images for, you can use to simulate being in that environment. So the potential for that might be in history, being able to show images from certain historical sites, to show places geographically around the world that are not always accessible, but can be via Google Earth. And the great thing about that is the students or the instructor who are in that environment can see what those environments look like around them. And there's the illusion that you're there. And that part doesn't really come through when you're looking at these flat 2D images that I'm about to show you. But again, it's a little over a minute, this clip. I'm going to take you to some of these places that might prove interesting, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. So let's take a look. So here we are at the Colosseum in Rome, looking around at the ground level, looking up at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different levels above us, and notice the lower area. There's a little bit of a blur here with the camera. That's to be expected. But this is a 360 view of the Colosseum, and there's a worker who is working with some scaffolding, it appears. We are at Versailles Palace. You can see up in the ceiling, see the artwork there, the chandeliers. And here we've gone from Versailles in Versailles Palace, France, to Versailles, Kentucky. Hello, Versailles. Here we are driving now around Minot State University. There's Old Main. Here's one of my favorite places, Hampstead Heath in England. A nice little green space outside of the hustle and bustle of the city of London. Of course, if you do prefer the hustle and bustle, here is Camden Town, with all of its little stores, shops, markets. Oh, and of course, a McDonald's. And if you'd prefer to see somewhere farther south and colder, you can see Antarctica. Hey, how are you doing there? And this is the Epic Roller Coasters app, so you can kind of hold on to the bar if you like. And here we go. I hate roller coasters. Whoa. So this is an app called Meet in VR. The idea with this app is you would be able to enter a virtual conference room or seminar room of sorts. You would sit in a room with others, and there would be somebody at the front of the room giving a presentation. The interesting thing is that documents that you would normally give in a presentation and show in a presentation would appear in the virtual environment. So, for instance, presentation documents with bullet points would be able to be seen, and you may even be able to, in apps like this, share documents with people virtually so they would receive the digital file in that way. So I'm going to start by jumping in as a guest, and I'm going to create a meeting. It says, and you can move around controller at the place where it says sit here, and you can move up a spot. Or you can turn around and see other places in the room and move back a spot. I think I'm going to sit here right in the back. So now you can see a little bit more of the room. So the speaker would be up here in the front. And here is a spot where you can cast the image of the presentation on the screen, and the speaker can be up here at the lectern. So I'm going to go over to the lectern, and here I am. I'm giving a presentation here before an audience of people in a virtual environment. So imagine you've got students here, or you've got people who are here from many different places, and you're able to talk together and look together in a virtual meeting room of sorts at presentations that the students give and that the instructors give. And that could be one potential use for apps like this. This is an app called Mondly. Mondly is a language learning app. So an app like this gives language learners an opportunity to practice using language in a controlled environment. It's not especially authentic, but it does provide a certain sense of interaction and engagement. So what we're going to do is we say, I speak English with the language acquisition here. I'm going to say American English. I want to learn, let's try Spanish. And we're going to try basic interactions on a train. Got the suitcase packed. Now we're at the airport.
Good afternoon. This your
Now I'm on the
captain
plane.
speaking with just a little flight information. Coming up on the left, we're going to be catching a glimpse of the Grand Canyon. On the right, you can be able to see the Hoover Dam.
Now we're coming out the airport. There's the train. Buenas tardes.
¿Cómo dice?
Hola. Hola.
¿Cómo se llama?
Mi llamo es Samuel. This is a game called Body Combat. This is an exercise game.
What's up, everyone? I'm Dan. I'm going to take you through two most common stances you'll see, as well as two great strikes. Now, the punches. Lead punch, bang is the jab. You take it directly out and back. So let's start in a left combat stance. Put your hands up, and already we're going to throw a left jab. That's purple. And now green, let's throw a right cross. Awesome. Tuck your chin down. Little tempo. Turn the shoulders. Awesome, fully extend. Did you hit the middle of the target there?
If you might be so inclined, you could even watch YouTube on the virtual world. See, here's the Lookout.
You're watching The Lookout, a production. So there you have it, about a half dozen or so VR titles using the MetaQuest 2. And again, there's other VR equipment out there. There's other titles out there. And yeah, so this is just a little bit of an experience for what VR can do in the current time. Again, VR has changed quite a bit since the 1990s with the Virtual Boy and other technologies of the time. And the apps have started to catch up. The question then is the technology there to necessarily be helpful for education now? And I would say, yes, it depends on what you're doing with it. If you're using it for language acquisition, then perhaps a language app like we looked at might be helpful. If you're doing physical fitness, sometimes maybe a VR physical fitness app might not be a bad idea, especially given the winters around North Dakota. So yeah, so depending upon what you're using it for education purposes, I think there's benefits to it. I like the notion of using Meet in VR to expand the potential for what we can do in our meeting spaces, both in person and online. And I'll also note that Meet in VR also has the opportunity to include people who don't use VR headsets into the mix. Apparently, and I haven't explored this yet, but apparently the documentation says that it's possible to get the app on your PC or Mac and also contribute to that virtual space. Even though you wouldn't have necessarily the same avatar presence, you'd be able to see what other people are seeing in a 2D experience. And that's the other side of this too, is that I've only shown 2D flattened images. In order to get the real experience for what VR can do, it'd be a great idea to try it out for yourself and see what you think. And as the apps tend to get better and better over time, you might find that there's an app for you in your classroom or as a student for you that would help to increase your educational potential or to give you additional exposure experience to things that, quite frankly, you might not have access to otherwise, such as visiting Antarctica, within just a few minutes to be able to see static images of that. And in the future, as people are talking about the metaverse, right, that's always in flux. Today, the metaverse, tomorrow, something else. But to be able to experience what we have now, to see what we have now, and to see whether or not it's beneficial, give it a try. And let me know what you think. If you see additional VR opportunities that haven't been covered in this episode, feel free to add them below in the comment thread below this video on YouTube and let us know. What applications do you currently see for VR? What do you think the potential is for this? Let us know. And it's that time again to end the episode. This is episode 29, the last episode of 2022. Be seen, be heard, be inspired. Thanks again for watching.